Alright, I think we're live. Yep, I just got a notification that we're live. Doing it live, yeah.
Doing it live.
Alright, hey everyone, it's been a little while since I've had a hobby stream of me working on something, and I decided it was high time to have another one, and particularly this I wanted to show a little bit of my work with sculpting work, and this time using a different type of modeling material. In the past, pretty much everything that I had done was exclusively using green stuff, modeling putty. You know, I've heard a lot of things about lots of other sculpting material like Procreate, Milliput, epoxy sculpt. There are tons of different sculpting materials people use. One of the main ones, Milliput, and I know I've heard a lot of people really like it because once it cures and hardens, it's significantly harder and more resilient than green stuff, which I'm accustomed to. And because of those qualities, it's a little easier to shape. Oh, hey, Meandering Shade. Yeah, it's it seems like you're up late all the time. Hopefully everything's okay on your end. Yeah. But yeah, so Milliput, it hardens a lot stronger, and it allows you to actually use sandpaper, I think even files, to reshape whatever it is you worked on. So for certain things, if you're sculpting like armored surfaces or something like that, it can be a lot easier to get like a nice finish. And so I decided I wanted to try my hand at using it to sculpt various things, mainly to sculpt bases. And so I sculpted little tiles on a series of bases for some Mordheim models. In the past, I had always done this using little plastic art pieces. I'd physically cut out each of the tiles, score them up with like an X-Acto knife, and then glue them down on the base. And wow, that's doable, and in the end looks pretty nice. It takes a long time. And probably the worst aspect about it is once you cut out all the tiles and glue them on, you have to go about getting the edges circular around the base, and there's not a good way to do that. Probably the best way is to get like some circular cutter and cut out the edges, but even that's not really very easy. So I thought it would be good to try and use Milliput. And it's actually worked out really well. And so I thought I have a few more bases that I wanted to start working on, and so I thought I'd do a short stream kind of showing people some of that if they're interested.
They have different versions. I see the one you have is yellow-gray. They have different versions. Is it different just based on color or hardening strengths? Or
Yeah, so I think they have several different versions. The yellow-gray is the standard one, and so far it's the only one that I've worked with. I know they make like a black variant, and I think even another one. And I think the physical properties of them differ a little. But at this point, I don't know enough about them to really speak towards them. I mean, if you look at like some of the instructions and stuff they give you with them, like they have like a little pamphlet showing like all sorts of different things that you can use Milliput for, and I mean, it's for all sorts of shit. Like you can use it to fix cast iron and water tanks, ceramics, car batteries. So I feel the stuff was designed to be used in a huge range of things. So epoxy sculpt, I've not tried using epoxy sculpt yet. I use it for some reason. It's 2 parts, cheap and bulk, drillable, sandable. Yeah, so I feel that was one of the next ones that I wanted to try and start using. epoxy sculpt because I've certainly seen a lot of people using it. But at this point, I haven't gotten any yet. Green stuff itself, which is what like I've done most of my work in, that's a little more costly. And like I've started buying an off-brand, not the GW stuff, because it's a little cheaper. It doesn't really seem to be any different. Okay, yeah, back to Milliput. Similar to green stuff, and I think a lot of the other materials, it comes in two parts. Let's try and get this on screen. Comes in two parts. You largely cut off an equal amount of each, mix them together. So we may as well get on to doing that. Let's try and actually get this all on camera. So one thing that, if you've not worked with Milliput before, I know I was initially pretty surprised with how it functions. So I was sort of, I guess, under the false impression would be really similar to green stuff, and it really isn't. While the end product is similar and the whole process going about them is similar, Milliput works a lot more like clay than green stuff. And so I'll start mixing the two halves together. But with green stuff, if you add water to that, the water doesn't really mix or incorporate itself at all in green stuff. However, with Milliput, if you add water to it, it'll actually absorb the water, and the consistency of the material changes, similar to what you'd see with clay. So, also, when you're mixing the two halves together, it's really sticky, and you see it sort of like gets stuck on like your hands and stuff, and that over time, like as you wait longer and longer, it becomes less and less sticky. And I think in the instructions they have some talk about how long it's actually workable, but I think in like after 30 minutes it's still malleable and you can work with it, but it's not quite as sticky. And then typically after 3 to 4 hours it's pretty hard and you can't really work with it anymore. Okay. So, mixed up the two halves together. And actually, I think I'll be back. I'm gonna go wash my hands to kind of get some of the excess putty off my hand. I'll be back.
Wash those hands.
Yeah. So, Meandering Shade, have you tried using any of the versions of Milliput, or have you largely just spent most of your time with epoxy sculpt? And I know apparently with Milliput you can also mix that with green stuff as well. So I'll eventually have to try and work with that too. But at this point I haven't really experimented with it. Alright, so for these bases, I'm going to try and start making a base that's similar to these other ones with like some of the little tiles and earthwork. So, can break off a small amount of it. And then a lot of the same tools that like I would commonly use for sculpting with green stuff, you can just use directly here. So the main ones that I would tend to use are these color shapers, these vinyl color shapers, and the whole series of different types. At least in terms of my preferences, I tend to like using the, I don't even know what they call this, more like a knife bladed color shaper. But once you have a, okay, I haven't used it in about 15 years. I used green stuff for a long time, but started using green stuff epoxy mix for a lot more. Okay. Alright, so I'll have to start looking into that because yeah, so that makes sense. Like, I mean, I think at least with what I'm working at, most of the time I don't really need it to be flexible. And having something that's a little sturdier and more resilient would actually be kind of nice. Um, because as it is, if you want to reshape something that you made with green stuff, um, you can't really use sandpaper or anything like that because you just end up like tearing or scoring whatever it is you're working on. So the only way you can really do it is you have to get like a new X-Acto blade and just carefully slice off anything that you don't want. Um, so in this case, like I'm trying to make a tile. I got the rough shape made, and then I'm just going in and starting to trim off some of the sides. Future, I might have to try and make the lighting a little better for some of these streams, but one thing that is nice about, that's also nice about the Milliput, since it has more of a clay-like consistency, as you like pull it out, sometimes it'll sort of score and tear, and for depending on what you're trying to make, in this case like little stone bricks, that actually looks pretty convincing. It looks convincingly like stone without too much effort. So there I got one of the bricks down. Let's move some of these out of the way and maybe it'll focus a little better. Yeah, that sort of did the trick. And since I said earlier, Milliput, like it actually absorbs water, you can use that to your advantage as well, and you can add a little bit of water to what you're working with, and then use that to smooth out textures. And so at one point we'll probably end up doing that. But like green stuff, it doesn't stick it doesn't stick really well to the vinyl color shapers, so that makes them a pretty good tool to work with. I've not actually ever used Vimo. I feel with all my years of sculpting, for whatever reason, I only ever really used green stuff. Oops. I mean, I probably should have been experimenting with this stuff from the beginning, particularly, but I guess as I've done more and more sculpting, I'm now more apt to sculpt more on my models rather than less like I had previously. So I think now there's more of a need for other types of sculpting materials and putties, because not all of the roles you're trying to do are best accomplished with, say, just one type of putty. What's also nice about sculpting these little bases, you don't necessarily have to make them perfectly. They don't each have to be exactly the same either. So, and even if the heights and stuff vary a little as well, it doesn't matter that much. And then I know for the other bases, like once once this dries, you can then just go back, and if you're not happy with one of the shapes, just with the X-Acto knife, just trim them down. Okay, so now, eventually, once I sculpt a few more of these, maybe we'll add a little bit of water to it and almost. Okay, so I'll have to look into that too, meandering shade. Like, I know the first time that I used Milliput, I was surprised with how sticky it was, and I thought, like, oh, maybe I should add a little water to it, and, well, that was a mistake, because it largely lost all of its consistency, and, like, you couldn't do anything with it until you waited until it dried. And I guess it had been a while probably since elementary school, that I had actually worked with clay, but, like, it brought back a lot of memories of doing that. Like, I know, Greg, you remember when we made clay whistles?
I do remember making clay whistles.
I don't even remember. Maybe that was in, like, middle school or something. We were pretty young, but... clay
You made the nicest. I made a snail.
That was nice.
I remember. I feel like I'm never on any of your streams, Adam.
Yeah.
Like, are they, aside from like our Tuesday night streams where we like just talk about bullshit, like, you're like sculpting and doing stuff streams, like, do people show up?
I feel at this point I've only done a handful of them, so, like, I feel most of them, at least one or two people have shown up. But most of the ones that I've done have always been on the weekend.
Yeah.
And it is interesting, like, sometimes you kind of have to figure out something that would fit well within, like, a streaming schedule. And a lot of times when I'm sculpting something, I'm only doing a small amount of sculpting, of just, like, a few details here or there, such that it wouldn't necessarily make for a great stream.
Yeah.
Not necessarily that this is making a great stream either, but and I guess I'm still also kind of playing around with, like, the camera itself. Like, the one that I have now, I don't really think it was mainly designed for capturing, like, faces and stuff like that, so it has a hard time focusing on, like, what you're working on. And now I've realized you just have to set the camera much closer to what you're working on than what I initially was, and so that can kind of make it hard to even see, like, what I'm doing. So if I'm doing any like, detail work with sculpting, it can be harder to, like, actually do that, because I'm focusing more on making sure everything's focused and whatnot. Okay. So actually, Mandarin Shade, with, like, stuff like epoxy sculpt, if you add water to that, does it like absorb the water, or how does it interact with water? Because that I feel is one of the main differences with Milliput, and like I should try and show some of that. I think I can show that at the edge of the base here once I get closer to the edge, we can add a little water to it to sort of flatten out and smooth out where it contacts the edge, so we'll have a nice slick surface. Yeah, but a lot of the other streams, Eric was a part of it, Greg, and while I was working on something, he was typically working on something as well.
Meandering Shade, I'm looking at your Instagram account. Have you been playing the game Hate? Is it any good? Do you like it? I saw on your blog you were saying you wanted to try to do more gaming this year. Have you been able to do that?
Yeah, it can be hard.
Yeah.
I know, it had been years. Yeah, it absorbs it and starts to break down somewhat. It actually... Okay. Okay, yeah, so that sounds like it's pretty similar to what happens with Milliput. And so I found with this, you don't really want to add a lot of water. So I would often just add a little bit of water to like whatever I'm working with, like maybe it be an X-Acto knife, and just dab a little bit of water on. Let's see if I can. And then see how we can get this to. Guess it's a little hard. The lighting might not be ideal since it's yellow and it's sort of. But it gets a really slippery. Let's see, can we? Yeah, you can sort of see it. Unfortunately, not on both counts. Hate is sitting on the shelf right now. And as for getting out the game, I've been fighting chronic depression and social anxiety for years. Okay, that sucks.
Yeah, no, that mental health can be a really hard thing to tackle. I mean, myself, like during my time in graduate school, I developed debilitatingly bad obsessive compulsive disorder pertaining with like keeping things clean and whatnot. The lab that I was doing research in was with a parasite that infects all warm-blooded animals, including humans. So like that made it worse. And like since then, like I've come to be able to deal with it better, but it doesn't go away. And it can be really hard. And I feel like it goes in stages where a little bit of time, like maybe a month or so, that I'm doing better at dealing with it, and then it gets worse for a time. And
Yeah, I understand that. Like, I mean, for me, when I started like my postdoctoral studies after graduate school, I largely moved away from everyone. I moved from the East Coast of the United States to California, and so essentially left behind all like the friends and stuff that I'd like do stuff with. So I essentially just stopped playing any form of games. And that was actually part of the reason why the three of us started our blog in the first place. It was as we went off to graduate school and stuff, we wanted a way where we'd sort of like keep in contact and have something to talk about.
Yeah, I feel like we're more involved in the hobby now, like in within the past 5 years, than we ever had before, despite playing the games even less.
Yeah, that's true. No, it's true. Like I know certainly while it started for us with like the blog and everything, like with the start of like Twitch and Instagram and Twitter and all that stuff, um, it's it's much easier to stay connected and like talk and meet other people um, than it had been in the past. So like we've certainly met tons of people and interact with them a lot more than what we had ever done. Like I feel like even when we did go to local game shops to play like Warhammer 40,000 or anything like that, we largely would only go with a friend or two, and even if there were other people at the store like playing a similar game, like we'd never interact with them. So um I guess I don't even know what I make of that, but that's how it was. And I guess we've also taken part in a lot of like collaborative events and stuff when even if we didn't necessarily go and play in the event, we made models and sent them to be used in different events and stuff like that. And I feel that's been one of the most rewarding parts of it in general is just being able to talk to and interact with other people that have similar interests, because it can be sort of hard to find other like-minded hobbyists and stuff in your area, particularly if you're not actually going out and like looking and seeking them. Yeah, which we never did. And I guess when I was in San Diego, um, I did start to go to one of the local. There was a local Games Workshop store there, a really small one, and I started going there, but it was largely just I'd go there, bring some of the models I was working on to show like the person who worked there, but I never actually played a game or anything like that. So like I don't know. And I guess part of that was because while there were other people there that were interested in the hobby, it was very clear every time I was there they weren't necessarily interested in the same things as say I was. They were more into building like big Warhammer 40,000 armies, hardly painting them. Like, oh, I have my 4,000, or that's not even a lot. I have my 1,500, or like 10,000 points of like Death Guard that I just built this weekend, and like it just wasn't. Well, I was there, like, well, I just spent the last 2 months making this single Death Guard model, like, and then like I'd show a few people, they'd look at it, and like it almost came across as they didn't even realize that a lot of effort went into it, and it was just kind of weird. It was just kind of weird. But I feel I always should have, while I was there, I feel I should have tried to do some form of armies on parade or something, even if it was just with like a small skirmish force. That would have been something I could have and should have done, but I never did. Guess there's time for that in the future. But I'm not even sure if there's a. I guess there has to be a Games Workshop somewhere around where we are, Greg.
I would guess there is.
I mean, I know for years, like the main headquarters of Games Workshop in America was in and around like Baltimore, Maryland, um, which is pretty close to where I am now. But that since moved to like a more centralized location. I guess maybe it's now in Texas or something. I don't know. And like all of the games days and stuff were in like Baltimore, so we went to a bunch of those.
You won a golden demon, Adam. Haha.
Yeah, I got bronze in one of the categories. Painting a Blood Bowl miniature, no less. Blood Bowl.
Yeah.
Oh, I should I should paint another Blood Bowl model sometime. We should try and play Blood
One of
Bowl
the
for
new
that matter.
halflings. I
They're
think the
nice
new
looking, the new
look
halfling
nice.
models.
Yeah.
I'm pretty impressed.
I also see Meandering Shade. You got a copy of Dave Taylor's new book.
Oh,
Or somewhat new. And looks like maybe you backed it on Kickstarter. How is that? I didn't end up backing it.
Dave Taylor actually lives in the area where we are
He
too
lives in
now.
Maryland, so he's not too far away. I mean, we met him a time or so at some like gaming store events. Like,
Nice guy.
really good dude, yeah. I wonder, like, I mean, we were never one to really build armies, so it's not the topic of the book. I don't know is quite what we're mainly into, but I feel Taylor was always the sort that he has quite the knack of being able to create an army but still have it be unique and still be interesting and unique, and he's able to somehow make an entire army of that without it just being open. I'm going to assemble some Acadians and that's that.
You know, he does a good job with conversions and stuff, and it has a good balance between
I kind of wonder, like,
the
how
different
much,
aspects.
I mean, I'm sure there are lots of nice pictures in the book, but how much insight into the process of making such a thing is actually talked about in the book, and like if it seems like it's something that would actually be helpful to try to do something yourself, or if it would or if more it's just like, yeah, this is a nice bound book to look at some of the cool things that Dave's done over the years.
Okay, so it's
not like there'd be anything wrong with that, but
okay. It says it's really good. It's mainly an informational guide on planning army builds with some tips on scratch builds and conversions, planning each step from construction through to painting, etc. Okay, so that's good, because I feel like if you were trying to do something like that, the more the more you structure it and plan out what you need to do, how you're going to do everything, it would probably be pretty essential for actually being successful and making it through and doing everything that you wanted for it. Because I think probably just about every hobbyist knows how difficult it can be to continue with their projects and stuff. Like, while you might be really excited about something for a while, it doesn't take much for your interest and excitement to wane, particularly if you like run into like a really challenging part along the way, whether that be like, oh, you know what, sculpting all of these cloaks or whatever is a lot harder than I thought it would be, or like, oh, painting 50 of the same stock guardsmen is a real drag, or whatever.
I see also on your Instagram, you basically have purchased all of the Night Vault warbands.
Oh, damn.
Like
They're
I
cool.
guess you recently said you haven't been doing too much gaming recently, but hopefully you've at least been able to play some of Night Vault or Shadespire. Like the three of us played. I mean, not a huge amount of Shadespire, but I really like Shadespire. I think like they've done a nice job with making a game that actually feels like a board game with suitable depth. It's still easy to learn, but interesting enough to keep you want to coming or make you want to keep coming back to it and trying different like deck builds and stuff. Like I was really impressed with it, and ideally would like to keep playing more of it, but I haven't gotten back to it.
Dave Taylor is a machine. Like, I don't see how he does it. Like, I know for what, like, I feel it was a few years ago, he had like he started a special Patreon account to help him like build and assemble like one of the Forge World Warlord Titans, and he sort of like documented that like event. And I remember I backed him for like a few, however many months it took him to do it, and like I don't even know if I could ever assemble, let alone paint something like that, even if I decided like I wasn't gonna do my best job with every one thing. Like, yeah, it's something else. I don't even think I ever played Shadespire. Yeah. Yeah, I was attracted to Shadespire because I still love board gaming and used to really like playing CCGs back in the day. So the mix looked good, but again, not getting out stopped me trying. Yeah, no, I understand that. Um, I understand that.
Well, actually, Adam, have you played it?
I don't actually think I have. I know I've like I. No, I don't think I ever have. No.
I played a bunch of games with.
I think when you were playing them with Eric, I was still in San Diego, so.
Yeah, I think it's great. Maybe one of the best games that I've played of GW's. Because, well, I love Games Workshop stuff. A lot of their games, I more like them because of the background, the models and stuff, and that the game part is secondary. Like Warhammer 40,000, the various iterations of it that I've played, like, I never thought it was that good of a game. That's not what kept me at it. But during my time in graduate school, Adam, you and I, we started playing lots of board games and kind of learned that, hey, board games can be great. Like, a hell of a lot more fun than what we were accustomed to with board games, like Risk or
even Axis and Allies.
Axis and Allies is still pretty good, but not always all that fun.
No, yeah.
But yeah, so I love board games. Meandering Shade, do you have a particular board game that you're really fond of, or a bunch that you like a lot? I mean, feel like we started playing a bunch. I mean, now that I haven't played as many recently, but I do love board games.
Well, Greg, do you have one that you would say is one of your favorite?
I guess there are a lot that I like. One of the ones that I've had really good experiences with was Twilight Imperium, which was Fantasy Flight Games like big space opera board game that can take like 6+ hours. But admittedly, I think we only played it like 3 times, but at least particularly the first 2 times were really memorable and great. Um, but it's unfortunately not a game that you can easily play very often.
No. Cosmic Encounter.
Yeah, Cosmic Encounter can be really fun, particularly if you have the right group of people. It's not very hard, and it can be pretty interesting and funny.
Keeps you engaged, even if it's not your turn. Which I feel can be a tall order sometimes.
Recently, so I got a new job at like a lab that tests pharmaceuticals like about 7 months ago, and some of my coworkers there have started to get into games. I mean, they're not super deep into board games. They were just playing a lot of Settlers of Catan, which is kind of a good entry game, I'd say, into the world of board gaming, and I've started to play some games with them, all on the simpler side.
This is Olot's Talisman, Lords of Waterdeep, Arkham Horror, social/spy games like The Resistance, and also Secret Hitler are kind of fun.
Yeah, so The Resistance, with this, like, some friends from my new job, we've been playing a lot of the game Coup. Coup being part of, like, the series of games set in, like, The Resistance. I mean, perhaps you've played that. It's kind of
A short.
Yeah, well, it's a really short game. Kind of a bluffing deduction game. I only ever played Lords of Waterdeep once, and I don't think you never played
I
it,
never
right?
played it, no.
Well, yeah, so it's a Dungeons and Dragons based, like, worker placement Euro-ish game, despite
Okay.
I don't think it was designed in Europe, but it's very much that style of game. I don't think anywhere near as complicated as something like Caverna or Agricola, but
Agricola, yeah.
the time that I played it, I liked it quite a lot, and I felt like it fit pretty well with the D&D theme, and the artwork all seemed pretty good. Like, it's something that I wouldn't mind going back to. Arkham Horror, I don't know if you've ever played Eldritch Horror. Fantasy Flight Games kind of took some of what people complained about with the Arkham Horror and like changed some stuff and made Eldritch Horror, which the times that I played that, I kind of thought that was more fun than Arkham Horror, which Arkham Horror, there's a lot of stuff going on, none of which seem, I don't know, I feel like that game kind of shows its age, the original Arkham Horror.
Well, there's a lot of, like, elements that are happening, some of which don't... I don't even know how to describe it. Well, regardless, Eldritch Horror is like an updated version, which I think plays better. And so if you like Arkham Horror, you'd almost certainly like
Eldritch Horror. Though I think at Gen Con last year, Fantasy Flight Games released a new version of Arkham Horror, and I would be interested to know what they did to that. Presumably they've made some changes to make it better.
Yeah.
One Night Ultimate Werewolf. I played that once with myself, Eric, and his wife Rebecca, and maybe one other person, but 3 or 4 people wasn't. I don't think was enough players for it to really be good. So I never returned to it because we didn't have more people. But I think it would probably be fun with more people. But with 3 or 4, it wasn't really enough. Surprisingly, we never played Talisman. I feel like, depending on the group of people that I'm playing with, like, really dictates what sort of game we're gonna play. Like, the people that I've been playing games with now, my new co-workers, like, we've just been playing things like Love Letter and Coup, which are all really easy and short games.
And not Carcassonne.
Catan.
Yeah, fucking Settlers of Catan.
So like really easy, pretty short games because they're still fairly new to board gaming in general. They'll hopefully eventually we'll start branching into more complicated things because I feel like I like that.
Start playing Terra Mystica. That's what you should get next, Greg.
Yeah, Terra Mystica is I don't know if you're familiar with Terra Mystica, Meandering Shade, but that's another Euro game. Which is, now that you mention that, maybe that's probably one of my favorite games that I've played. There's a lot going on in it, but all of the elements fit together really well in a cohesive whole. Whereas I feel Arkham Horror had a lot of different phases and a lot of different things going on, but they feel very disparate. Like, they don't always feel like they work together towards one cohesive thing. Whereas Terra Mystica is a game where, well, one thing about Terra Mystica, there's absolutely no randomness.
Yeah, so that's another reason some people really like it, because if you do poorly, it's because you played poorly, and yeah. But yeah, I guess
I'm not gonna knock Settlers of Catan, or they renamed it to just Catan now. Like, I feel like it has shown lots and lots of people that board games are more interesting and better than like Monopoly. Though there's a lot of randomness to it. Like, depending on the numbers you roll, you could be spending most of the game not really getting the resources you need, and it.
I feel the best part about Settlers is if you're actually there trading and doing stuff like that. But if you make an enemy of everyone and they don't want to trade with you, it rapidly really loses a lot of its. A lot of the fun aspects to it, because then you can really get sort of trapped if you have a really bad setup and resource collection. You can get pretty screwed. Yeah, I really like Terra Mystica the few times we played it. Well, I think I've sculpted about as many bricks as I want to, at least for this one base. I'll have to get back to it next time, but I'm now starting to work on another one. Maybe I'll make the the tiles here slightly larger, so they're not as time consuming and painful to do.
Well, so does anybody know if Hate the game like has gotten good, favorable reviews? Do people think it's good? I mean, I know it was based on a graphic novel that Adrian Smith he wrote and drew it all, which I feel like probably most people didn't even know about said graphic novel until the game came out. I don't know if you read said graphic novel, or was the game the thing that clued you off to it?
I have no idea if the game's any good or not. I know like they give you a metric shit ton of models and stuff that are all like largely pre-assembled. They look pretty good. The sculpts are pretty good. Like it's certainly I feel it's something like if you'd compare like what you get in that game compared to some of the Games Workshop games, you'd sort of question like Jesus, Games Workshop doesn't they're not even trying. But it's sort of a different mentality. Like Games Workshop is fully funding everything, not really having any clue as to whether people are going to buy whatever it is they make. But I watched a few battle reports and it seems to get generally good responses. Um, and yes, I was a fan of. Okay, so if you're a fan of the graphic novels and stuff like, and also like the artwork of like just Adrian Smith in general, it certainly makes sense. Yeah, he did like lots of artwork for Games Workshop, and like he did tons of the artwork for like the Horus Heresy, Sabretooth games, card game, and stuff. Like he just did so much.
He's a very, or his style's very noticeable. Like you can tell Adrian Smith like from a mile away.
Yeah,
Like before I knew that Hate was an Adrian Smith thing. Well, I guess I knew right away just by looking at
yeah,
the art.
it's very distinct. Well, it sort of reminds me of Dark Age because that was like a game based on the art from Braum, I guess, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
But I don't know if that was based on like graphic novels or anything like that.
I
I'm not
don't think
sure.
so.
Yeah. Do not know.
Well, the thing about board games is like, just because you bought the board game doesn't mean you bought the time to actually play the board games.
At least you don't have to assemble the models. That's like a big win for Hate because
Yeah.
I feel it's a tall order to make sure you like assemble everything. Like hell, we bought Space Hulk like 2 times and I still have yet to play it. Like I never assembled all the models in any of the games. It's just rough. Oh god.
Yeah.
One thing, getting back to like Milliput and everything, um, I've also found if you try and use it to sort of like create like dirt and earth and stuff, it works pretty well. Um, just putting some of it down and just sort of like dragging and tearing at it, like you can get pretty easily get a pretty convincing looking like earth and dirt formation a lot easier than like say you could achieve, or like at least that I would achieve with green stuff. There were quite a few complaints about breakages and hate when people received it. I had one break in one of the larger figures, but it was clean and easy to fix. Yeah, I feel like I watched a video or two of people pulling out all the models and stuff, and there were a ton of them. And even though they were all packaged in like this like nice little plastic, almost like a plastic trays, such that they wouldn't move around, I feel just based on the volume of models and stuff like that, some of that was bound to happen.
Yeah. I mean, certainly for somebody like you, Meandering Shade, that has a lot of experience building models and stuff, like some things break and probably isn't a big deal. But for maybe somebody who is more just coming from playing board games and not accustomed to putting together models and stuff, it would probably be more of a big deal.
I think that's certainly true.
Whereas I feel like the three of us, like, we more came to board games after being involved with modeling and Warhammer stuff for a long time.
What's you got a board game? You're like, hell, we can actually just play this. We don't have to do anything.
Yeah, it was like amazing. Like, I love Warhammer, but sometimes not like just buying a game and being able to play it. Amazing.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. So the little vacuum form trays like that might have, huh? That's interesting. Yeah, I haven't looked close enough at all the packaging and stuff. But I mean, some of the models were pretty thin and finely detailed, so like it's certainly like not necessarily too surprising.
And also, I think you're in the UK, Meandering Shade. It's probably like three in the morning. It's pretty late, and or early. It's only like 11 o'clock here, which isn't so terrible.
Yeah, thanks for sticking around and chatting with us, like, and for the past few like streams and stuff. It's always nice to talk to a fellow hobbyist, whether or not it's been informative on your end, but and maybe if you haven't tried using Milliput, you could try using it. It's pretty good. And I'll maybe, once I get like epoxy sculpt and some of that stuff, maybe I'll have to try and see what I can do with that. And I'll certainly have to try making different mixtures of the different putties. Yep. 3:05 a.m. That's really early / late.
Matchbox 20 has a shitty song about 3 a.m.
That's true, Greg. You didn't have to bring that up.
Or I guess it's not. It was fine. A popular song that is fine enough.
I love Matchbox 20. Oh, yeah. I haven't. I feel like I've just listened to some of their more popular songs. And what was the name of the album with that dude on the front with the
goggles?
Yeah, with the goggles.
I don't remember. Lifeboat, I really love Matchbox 20. They are the best band when I think of bands that would play the Taco Bell Arena in Butts. Okay.
Fair enough.
3 a.m. It's 3 a.m. I must be lonely. Hell, and she said, baby.
Damn, Greg.
She thinks that happiness is a mat that sits on a doorway. And outside,
Greg,
it starts raining.
it's enough.
What's the Rob Thomas? I think is his name.
Yeah, I think that's his name.
Rob Thomas. Oh, one thing also looking on your Instagram page, Meandering Shade, you have a post about being excited about the 28th magazine. Well, so that all of the articles have been edited, and now it's just in the phase where the formatting needs to be completed. So, like, hopefully it's gonna be done soon. It's taken a little bit longer than what was initially anticipated, but like all the content's done and has been done for a little while. So it's coming. It's still coming.
And I feel like a lot of that editing is really it's largely being done by only one or two people. So.
Or the editing was done by a few people.
But like getting the
like the design and putting it all together.
Yeah.
Is all being done by James Sheriff. So he's doing it all.
Yeah, he has his work cut out for him.
Yeah, a lot of work.
I think everyone's looking forward to it being released. It'll be like the type of magazine that you always wanted, but Games Workshop would never make.
Oh yeah, because with the newer White Dwarf magazines, like at least what I thought was the most interesting part were those Blanche Issue articles. But even those, they largely just showed pictures of cool models and didn't give whoever made them the space to really talk about their design process or what they were doing or why they were doing. And this has allowed people to kind of take what Bland Situ was and like expand on everything.
Yeah, it's gonna be good. Okay, so I don't know how long we've been streaming now, but so the consistency of the Milliput's changing now. It's like it's not nearly as sticky as it had been. It's like a little more, I hesitate to say brittle, but, and I guess if I'd add some water to it, it would become easier to work with, but it's certainly changing. Have you been able to do any hobby-related stuff as of late, Greg?
Me?
Yeah,
of
you,
course
Greg.
not.
Yeah.
course not.
Yeah, I don't know if Games Workshop have like that's when they maybe like a year or two. It was probably like 2 years ago when they revamped White Dwarf. I subscribed for about a year, and then after that started buying a few issues here and there for the Blanchitsu articles. But even then, like it was never a sure thing. Like you'd go like a month or two where they wouldn't have one. So I sort of think that's what it's like now as well. Um, and any issue that actually has a Blanchitsu article is typically those are the better issues because it's less of them just showing what you can buy from them. But I mean, in that sense, we I guess don't really know like how much of a feature they want it to be in the future. But I mean, I remember after I had it, like I subscribed to it for a year, I dropped the physical subscription and was really considering getting the digital subscription because it would be easier for me to view and read and stuff, and then they just canceled it. I guess it didn't sell well or anything. So like how I would have preferred to read it, you can't even get it that way anymore. I know Eric, at least for a while, had the digital subscription, and it was pretty nice. But it's now gone, unfortunately.
Yeah, I feel if it wasn't selling well, why would they have put in the extra money to,
An effort to make it, yeah.
yeah.
Lifeboat, they still do make White Dwarf. And I mean, over the years, they've tried out tons of different things. Tons of like they were for like a number of years they had like what was it called? They had White Dwarf, which was a really short thing, and then they had some other. I think it was called Visions, which was like a larger, more expensive book that it was almost nearly all just pictures, like almost no words in it, and it was more like a coffee table type book. I don't think that did very well either. And part of that was because like for the most part if they're gonna have like more of a picture book style thing, it would have been a lot more interesting if they if the picture book was filled with like armies and models from like that people who worked at the company made, or armies and models that fans and stuff had made, rather than just having more pictures of the new releases, which you could largely just go online and see. Lifeboat says, sounds like they have to license out a new 40K iPhone RPG to justify that. That is one interesting thing about GW. They have their IP out in so many different like computer slash video games and stuff now. Like there are tons of them, and they're seemingly always releasing and making more. A lot of which you never heard of and didn't even know were released.
But they've had a reasonable track record recently, like the Vermintide games, which are kind of Left 4 Dead and Warhammer Fantasy End Time Universe. I think
they were pretty good. The Total War game was pretty good. The Dawn of War games were pretty good.
There were two of those Total War games.
Yeah, I think even the what was it called? Like the battle they had like a Battlefleet Gothic game, which was largely just the board game. I think that was pretty good too. Yeah, Space Marine from a while ago, I think it was fine. Yeah, so they've had a fair number of ones that were pretty good, but they also had a lot that were pretty awful. Pretty awful. Well, I think I'm just about done with all the sculpting that I'm gonna do with the Milliput.
Okay.
Mandarin Shade, yeah. Still love a good RPG. Picked up Warhammer Fantasy RPG. Thinking about picking up Wrath and Glory, the 40k RPG, and maybe down the line the Age of Sigmar RPG when it's released. Yeah.
Wrath and Glory, that's kind of a shitty name. Or not a very creative name, but then come to think of it, like Dark Heresy.
That's awful.
Not a very good name either. Like,
oh shit, Eric is saying something.
Wrath, Eric, you're in the comments. Wrath and Glory, the Dark Heresy, like it's like naming like evil badness.
Shadows Pair, yeah, their newest release. Shadows Pair. Can we get? I guess Eric, are you in a position where you could join? Dark Imperium wasn't that terrible. It wasn't that terrible.
Meandering Shade, the most recent RPG session that I ran a one-shot game of the My Little Pony RPG. A bunch of people at the one game shop that I started to go to wanted to play it, so I bought like the starter set thing, read through it, and ran a game session of it. It was funny. The game was really easy, and pretty simple. I think the idea though was it was a game to get like young kids into playing role-playing games and stuff, so there weren't too many rules. So I
Greg,
feel like, what?
do we want to try and get Eric in the chat? Like, I think if we want to do that, probably the easiest thing would be to end the chat with you and start another one with.
We can't do the little thing to add somebody.
Can we? I was trying to do.
I'll try.
Yeah, it was a My Little Pony or like pen and paper RPG, from what I understand.
Yeah.
Oh, Eric's here too.
Yeah, the actual My Little Pony RPG. It's called Tales of Equestria. I do know, as you said, yeah, like I think somebody took the Pathfinder rule set and like modified that. But yeah, I was playing Tales of Equestria, which was very rules light. And it was funny. One of the people that was playing in my session, their pony, their like special ability was video piracy. And unsurprisingly, being good at video piracy didn't really help them at all throughout the adventure.
Crazy.
Yeah. I can hear your like feedback of you, Greg, through someone's microphone. I don't know. Yeah.
It's probably mine. I think it's mine. We're good streamers, everybody.
Yeah.
We're the best.
Yeah.
Can people still hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, I think it's fine. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. I used some Milliput tonight too, Adam.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
A couple of my
Battle
buddies were
Cruise.
playing Pony Finder. It's a
It should
good
be
way to refer
said.
to it.
It should be said, meandering shade. I have never watched any of the My Little Pony cartoon shows. Like, I don't really know anything about it, aside from what I learned reading the rule book for My Little Pony.
What did
So
you
maybe
learn
I
about it?
wasn't the best person to run the
Didn't
sessions.
who wrote it? Was it like
Alesso Cavator. Maybe I'm pronouncing his name wrong, but I mean he worked for GW, wrote a
a bunch of
bunch
the
of
Warhammer editions and stuff? I believe
yeah,
important stuff.
or Alessio Cavator. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. But yeah, he worked for Games Workshop for a long time. I mean, pretty sure he wrote at least the original rules for the Lord of the Rings strategy battle game. I think some of the versions of Warhammer and 40,000.
I think he had a lot of involvement in like the fantasy stuff. Hey, so how about that Space Marine
Oh,
Lord Discordant? Did people talk about this?
no.
We didn't talk about
Oh,
anything.
Alessio also wrote the rules for Bolt Action. Bolt Action,
Oh,
that World
really?
War II game, or Alesso and Rick Priestley wrote the rules together.
Huh?
Interesting.
So he wrote a lot. He's been a part of a lot of fairly significant things, including Tales of Equestria.
Important releases, those.
Yeah.
What model were you talking about there, Eric?
The new Chaos Lord Warsmith thing on
Oh,
that.
that dumb thing. Let's
Yeah,
see if
the
I can
Lord
find it.
Discordant seems to be called.
That's pretty cool.
I feel it has a lot of stuff going on, maybe a little bit too much stuff going on.
I feel if it was just the Walker Beast thing without the stupid looking heavy stubber, it would be fine. But having like kind of a gangly, dumb looking Space Marine sitting awkwardly on top, like, oh, there's no place to sit on here, but I'll climb on.
Presumably that's somewhere on the. Oh wait, I think I found it.
Like, and he has this really stupid halberd. He has some Archimandrite like things, like firing the heavy stubber, and I don't know. I really don't like it. But it seems to have been a lot of people seem to be really excited about it.
I mean, I
But
guess
I
at least
feel it
it's
just
different.
looks like
Here,
all the
I
worst.
brought up pictures of it.
It's
Feel-
pretty. It's a new and interesting idea, though,
Is
which
he
I don't
sitting
feel
on
like.
the thing, or is
Making
he like
it dumber.
standing?
I feel, yeah, I don't know. I just think the fact that they put a Warsmith on top ruins it. Like, otherwise, it'd be like, oh, this is kind of neat that they're keeping on going with these sort of spider walker things, but in sort of a different direction. And like, that all could have been neat. But it's just like, let's cram a Warsmith. But I don't know. I guess I've for a while disliked their Warsmith models that just seem to have these big fat tendril things that seem out of place and just put on there to be cool. Like, they'd be so cool if you include some of those details. It looks like, so there's this, I guess, yeah, the rider just to me seems like an afterthought, because like there's this kind of interesting beast thing, and then way on the back he's sitting there like they just place way on the back, like on the thing's ass, and like, yeah, someone could sit back there if they really wanted to. I don't like it at all.
Well, he's in the back of the picture for maybe it's the box game. He's back there. They
Yeah.
pointed it out to us. It's pretty cool. Yeah, I mean it's okay. the insectoid like mouth and face is interesting. It's pretty creepy.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fine. Yeah, I just don't like that Chaos Lord dude. It just seems so out of place.
I never even heard of Fantaside. But looking on Board Game Geek, like, yep, 2012 it was released. So that was a little while ago now. All things considered.
I feel now in this day and age, it's probably pretty hard to just out of the blue come out with like try and come out with a new IP, new board game, and have it be successful. Not that it doesn't happen, but I mean, even with like Hate and stuff, that was pretty successful in the Kickstarter. But I don't think they're. Do they have any plans to continue printing the game, or is that
Based on the Kickstarter? I mean, maybe it's changed, but they were all big on like this will never be printed. Like it's too grim and violent and stuff. Like it just seems kind of dumb, like sort of sensationalist. Just like and it also seems kind of like why does Cool Mini or Not have to like kickstart virtually all of its games? Like
They're trying to be like Mantic.
I suppose. It seems like couldn't they be beyond that? Although I mean, I guess maybe it's just good business, a good
it's a
business
safer
decision.
option, probably.
In that, like they can get all that money up front, even though they know half the people who get their products will like never play them. But it doesn't matter; they've already gotten the money.
All these bug bots for Chaos and still no stock tank. I agree. That is frowny face. It's a pretty big fail on GW's part.
Well, I mean, maybe that speaks to the point that like they need to like chaos is important and they need chaos in the universe and such, but they need to put chaos in without Chaos Space Marines.
I agree.
Like, cause yeah, this new thing would have been a lot cooler if they didn't like just kind of force in a Chaos Space Marine. Like, oh, how can we make it Chaos Space Marine? Let's put a dumb rider on it. It just doesn't look like.
Yeah, I'm not too convinced with it. I like the bug bot thing. He's okay. But like the heavy stubber on it looks horrible. The rider is pretty lame, as we already commented on.
Yeah, I mean, I could see shade like about it maybe not being super market friendly, but I don't know. I still don't think. I think it would be fine. Hate, I mean. Yeah, I mean, I guess maybe that if they were really set on like not bringing it to like a larger market and such, I guess Kickstarter makes sense in that regard. Like it's not just another version of Zombicide that they know they can put in stores and people will buy it. Admittedly, I wonder if people have stopped buying different versions of Zombicide. I mean, I assume people still back the Kickstarter, but
or are they still doing Kickstarters? I knew they may have done a shit ton of them in the past, but I feel like I haven't heard about it in a little while. Maybe they've stopped.
Yeah, perhaps.
Yeah, that's a good point, Mandarin Shade. Like, literally, why is the rider not a dark Mechanicus?
When I saw it, that's what I first thought. Like, oh, at least they're like breaking into Dark Mechanicum, and then looked a little bit more at it. It's like, oh,
it's just a big dumb Space Marine. Yeah, I agree.
Because I feel if it was Dark Mechanicum, it would have worked a lot better because they could have had the rider maybe partially surgically embedded into the thing or just something that would make it seem like fit with how weird the creature mechanical thing is rather than just seeming like some Chaos Space Marine sitting awkwardly on the back of it. But yeah, I do find it interesting how like everyone's that I've seen online have been really all about it.
It's a pretty good model. I don't think it's like where I wanted them to go. Centaur like call. Yeah, like I feel that would have been perfect here. Like I mean this model could have even been almost like a counterpoint to
Yeah.
Belisarius call or whatever.
It would have been a lot
Also,
better.
you almost like within a few days, I imagine on the Instagram and blog scene, we will see people converting this into like a Dark Mechanicus like tech priest type thing. It has to happen. It's happening. People are already planning it. John Blanche probably already did it.
Yeah.
So in that sense, I guess that's good. You can just take off the Chaos Space Marine and you got it. You got it covered.
I suppose one good thing about this model, though, does perhaps suggest that when they do release the newer Chaos Space Marine Codex and whatnot, there might be some more interesting things in it. So that's something.
Yeah.
That it's not just the same codex that's been released for years and years.
Yeah.
So that, I guess that itself is neat. Even if I don't particularly like it. Do you think that's a heavy stubber?
It's huge.
Like
Yeah.
the cartridges that are funneling into it are so big.
It kind of looks like they have like
Shit.
lead bullets, like
Lead
almost like
tips.
semi-wad cutter.
Yeah, that's what they look like.
God.
But they're probably like 75 or 80 caliber.
They're bigger than that, probably. They're huge.
They're huge.
But they're not so big that they're still too small to go through the barrel of that gun they have there.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, maybe just the muzzle at the front opens really
it
wide.
could be the front widens.
Yeah.
Could
Pretty
be.
cool.
So I think I want to go to bed, friends. Meandering Shade, maybe you should go to bed too.
It's true. It's pretty
like
late for all of us.
3:35. Holy shit.
It could be an autocannon. An autocannon probably makes more sense.
That would be better.
Autocannon.
That would be better. I really like that there's that Chaos Star on the front. It's pretty neat.
Wait, I don't know where is
the
it?
Chaos Star sight.
Oh my god, on the top of the autocannon. Whew, that's bad. What's it there for?
To be cool.
Yeah, that's cool. I love that detail. That attention to detail.
They did it. It is cool.
Yeah. Well, all right, Greg. Well, thanks for joining me.
I'm rocking out of here. Yeah, it was nice talking to everybody.
Yeah,
hopefully you get some sleep, Meandering Shade.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess maybe.
Nice talking to you.
Yeah, we should probably wrap this up pretty soon as well. I finished the sculpting like I wanted to do. And
that's good.
We even talked about this thing.
That thing, alright. Yeah, like I don't. Oh, that's good to see. I'll put some stuff on Instagram. That's good.
Yeah. So I guess I've pretty much done all the stuff I wanted to do. I guess one thing, I soon need to come up with a model or something to do for the conversion corner for the blog this month.
That's true.
Oh no, it's fine, Mandarin Shade. He just left.
You can convert the rifle on that Eldar Ranger.
Oh damn, I could do that. The Blackstone Fortress
Ranger, that's ridiculously stupid.
I need to fix that.
And it's designed. It's so thin that I feel like practically everyone who has purchased or assembled that model, the barrel is broken off at some point.
Yeah. It's true. It's true.
So I mean that could be an easy thing that doesn't require a particular like investment of thought.
Yeah, so that's a possibility. I also have a bunch of the newer Goblin releases that Greg and I purchased under the guise of using them to do some conversions and stuff. Still haven't done anything with them.
Yeah. Well, Shadespire's come, or shit, that's not what it's called. Shadow Spear's gonna be in stores this weekend, Adam. Make some cool stuff.
That is true.
It is meandering shade. Yeah, it's really difficult to keep up with the blog. Like I feel the only reason we've been able to keep it up is because there are three of us and we can kind of all work on different aspects of it.
Yeah, very much so.
And to be honest, the fact that we've started to record a podcast these last 2 years makes an easy way to have some posts. I mean, maybe no one, I don't know if that many people ultimately listen to them, but it at least results in stuff being posted on the blog.
Oh, actually.
But if it's just one person doing it, it's like really hard to keep up.
Yeah. So yeah, actually, meandering shade. Like before we end the stream, I guess I have one question for you. I saw your recent post on Instagram, with all the little servo skulls and stuff you're working on. Where did you get all the little tiny watch parts and stuff to?
Oh yeah, they look really nice.
Because like I feel like
really fiddly work.
The little watch parts and stuff like that, it's right up my alley. Like I feel having lots of stuff like that could work really well for certain conversions. Guess I could just tear apart a whole bunch of old watches and stuff I have. But yeah, they look really good.
They do look nice. I guess the Secrets of the Void guy, he does a lot. He's done a bunch of neat servo skulls with that. Yeah, that's a good thought, meandering shade. Admittedly, I feel we've started to use Instagram a lot more too, showing work in progress stuff, and then almost as a way to advertise, like, hey, we have a blog post.
Oh, that's a good idea. I should just look on eBay for watch parts. Okay, I might have to do that because.
But yeah, Instagram gets, I feel, just a lot more traction. It's easier for people to see stuff.
People oftentimes don't want to read what you have written on the blog and stuff anyway.
I feel more than that. It's just it's difficult because you have to almost like think to go and I should check these blogs out. Whereas like Instagram, it can all be there. You can stuff like kind of more personal stuff from friends or hobby related stuff, and it's easy to just scroll through and hit like or quickly tap out some message like, oh, it's really neat to like love that conversion, and then that's it.
Yeah.
You don't need to go to a computer. And so I think that's just kind of where things are shifting to, and it's just a lot easier. And I mean, I do. Instagram is somewhat unfortunate in that like it's hard to really do anything with the images. They're not that high resolution and whatnot. Yeah. But I do like that it's fairly focused or adept for content creators. Like Whereas like I feel Twitter isn't that good for content creation thing. It's just sort of rambling about this and that, and then
Yeah.
quickly anyone who responds or applies are lost and whatnot. Whereas Instagram, since it's primarily pictures, it's pretty easy to, like, if you find something, you can, through hashtags or whatever, you can easily go to the person's profile and see all the images and stuff there. Whereas, like, certainly you can't really go to a Twitter profile and see all the neat content they have, because it's just replies to random tweets and whatnot. And, like,
Yeah.
it's, whereas I feel Instagram is just a lot better suited for advertising, like, kind of the artwork you're doing or that sort of thing.
Like, I can't do it. I've tried several times to, like, look at Twitter and the feeds and stuff, but, like, it's even hard to read, like, if there's a Twitter conversation going on. Like, I find it's even hard to read that and find where the conversation is going, and oh, did I miss?
God, I hate it. I hate Twitter so much. It's like, I mean, Instagram itself can be kind of a time sink, but Twitter, that's even worse. And now every time I open it up, it's just like 4,000 tweets that you haven't read. Like, just like, that's just too much of a job. Yeah, I don't know.
Not doing it. Can't do it. Won't do it.
No. But yeah, the blog sort of stuff does offer a nice way to have more substantial descriptions and such. So I think they're not gonna quickly go away completely, even if they maybe don't generate the same amount of interest that they might have in the past.
Yeah.
But I guess that's why we're trying to look into streaming and stuff like this, to see if there's any interest there, if it, like, picks up and just as another way to connect with people rather than just through the blog, which is slowly dwindling in interest.
Yeah, I feel if anything now, it's more just it's a good way to chronicle what you're working on as a reference and everything.
Yeah, no, that is true.
All right, Eric. Well, I think I'm gonna wrap up the stream now.
Yeah. All right.
Thanks for joining the stream at the end, Eric. It was good to hear from you.
Yeah, no, sorry, I only joined so late, but
yeah, no worries. And yeah, Meandering Shade, thanks for joining us again. It's always good to have someone to talk to, and
yeah.
We'll see when we can get on next. Whether it could be another stream of me, like, working on these bases or working on the next Sister of Sigmar model, who knows. I have lots of stuff that I'm working on and need to work on, so we'll see what we can do. But yeah, keep up with your hobby work. Again, I love the little servo skulls you're working on, and hell, I'll look forward to the next Instagram post that you say is soon coming.
Yeah, no, it should be good.
Yep, it was great chatting. All right, well, if and when you do get to bed, hopefully sleep finds you well. All right, until next time. Talk to you soon.